Hello there. Welcome in to a Christmas Eve edition of the show, which, other than a few Christmas songs as bumper music, will not be any different than any other day that this show airs. But we're going to get into the spirit of things, and I certainly do appreciate you joining me, especially on what I would imagine is a very busy day for you, getting ready for the holidays actually coming up here. So I very much appreciate your patronage, whether you're listening on the air, whether you're listening online, or whether you're listening on the Extra Sports 1300 app, which is sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics, a Christmas fruitcake of topics, perhaps more apropos for the occasion. And I know you're busy running around. Maybe you're a tad irresponsible like me and need to get a few things today. No judgment. But if you got the time to reach out, 719-247-1313, you could call or text into the show. I certainly did not expect the Nuggets-Mavericks game to be as competitive and compelling as it ended up being. The Nuggets, furious rally from down 21 in the first quarter, or first half, I should say. The score after the first quarter was the same, coincidentally, as it was when Dallas came to Denver and beat them. But Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, combining for 60 points, brought the Denver Nuggets back from down 21 in the first half, and they had a chance to win the game at the Horn. Here's how it sounded, courtesy of Altitude, as you heard right here on Extra Sports 1300.
Inbound goes to Jamal Murray. He picks it up. He's across the timeline at 5. High pick Jokic. Murray throws it to Joker. Throws it in the corner. Watson for the winner. Missed it at the Horn, and Denver's 11-game road winning streak is over.
Late in the game at the buzzer, Peyton Watson, perhaps not the person that you would be expecting to take that last shot. Even with Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown out, you probably at least two Peyton Watson's down on the list of guys that you would expect to take the last shot to potentially win the game. Before I give my thoughts on it, here's Nikola Jokic on why he decided to pass it, or what he saw that made him want to give the ball to Peyton Watson.
Jamal played pick and roll. They switched, and I kind of offer myself in a little pocket area. I turned around, and Gafford was kind of behind Martin, and I saw it pivot in a corner, and I think it was a good shot. It didn't go in.
It was a good shot. Nay, it was a great shot. You could not ask for a better look at it at the Horn than what Peyton Watson had. A guy that has made a name for himself this year because of some of the games where he pops up with big scoring nights, and most of those points come from corner threes. You can't get a better look than what Peyton Watson got. But as soon as that ball that was halfway down jumped out and the Nuggets lost, I knew exactly what the discourse would be like today. This is LeBron James to Donyell Marshall all those years ago. The idea that making the absolute right basketball play is somehow wrong. If you're watching on the stream, I'd like to show you something. So this is, if you're watching again on our social media platforms, this is the final frame as Jokic is getting ready to pass it to Peyton Watson. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 Dallas Mavericks within 6 inches of Nikola Jokic, and the fifth guy is about 2 or 3 feet away. The entire Mavericks team collapsed on Nikola Jokic, and he's supposed to take that shot when you can see Peyton Watson in the far corner standing all by his lonesome. A guy that, as David Adelman pointed out, after the game is shooting like 50% from that spot. I will not hear arguments to the contrary. That was absolutely the right decision on the part of the smartest basketball player walking planet Earth. I actually somewhat marvel at the fact that Nikola Jokic was able to get such a clean pass to Peyton Watson, given that the entirety of the Mavericks team was collapsed on him. It is, and I know we second guess, and we are armed in our second guessing with the benefit of hindsight. That was absolutely the right play. It was the right player in that situation. We can talk about, Peyton Watson's big game ability, his clutch ability. That wasn't a big game last night. Okay, it was a big moment, not a big game. So on December 23rd, I think it is just fine and dandy that Peyton Watson takes that shot that he is averaging, making half of the shots he takes from that spot, as opposed to Nikola Jokic trying to force a shot up over 4 Dallas Mavericks players. It was the right play. Shot just didn't go in, as Nikola Jokic said. And oh, by the way, that ball was halfway down. It's not like Peyton Watson airballed it or bricked it. The ball was halfway down the cylinder and jumped out. David Adelman, like me, does not want to hear any arguments to the contrary on whether that was the right decision to make in that moment.
There was 4 people contesting a really tough shot. I thought our best 2 players made the right play. The first one was Jamal to Nikola, and the next one was Nikola to his teammates. It felt like 5 guys guarding 2. So, you could presuppose you want to what corner to put Tim in, because Tim's got it going. He made 7 threes, but you don't know if they're going to set him left or right in the coverage. And Peyton's shooting 50 plus from the corners this season. It's not like Peyton's just a non-threat. So I feel for him.
And I do too. And Peyton Watson immediately went down to the floor. That would have been one of the finest moments of Peyton Watson's young career. So you do feel for the guy. In the part that David Adelman brought up about Tim Hardaway. And it's funny, a buddy of mine was at the game, text me, said he did not fight Dallas traffic to watch the Tim Hardaway game. Tim Hardaway was spectacular in that game. And I can talk about Jokic and Murray, scoring 60 combined points, and when ultimately the Nuggets did tie the game, take the lead in the second half, it was largely due to Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. But let's give credit to Tim Hardaway and the Nuggets bench, because they were the ones that at least kept the Nuggets where they were after the first quarter, which it was the starters that were getting blown out in the first quarter, to be fair. Tim Hardaway and the bench kept it there while Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were on the bench, mind you. The non-Jokic minutes and non-Murray minutes, and the Nuggets were actually able, once the deficit got to 21, close the gap a little bit. And then in the third quarter, it was Jamal Murray playing like an all-star, watching the broadcast on Peacock, both Jamal Crawford and Mike Tirico talking about how Jamal Murray must be an all-star. Catching up to where you and I have been for a few weeks now, that Jamal Murray is playing at an all-star level. He was great. Nikola Jokic was great. Did not get a triple-double. But they made the right play. And the Nuggets did well enough to come back into that game. Even if Peyton Watson hits that shot, the Nuggets would have stolen that game. Everything I just said applies, but the fact that the Nuggets were down, a team that had just beaten them not that long ago. Remember that 4-game home losing streak? Dallas was a part of that. So you would think that the Nuggets were at least a little bit motivated to get back at them, because Dallas, although they're having a decent run of it of late, is not on the Nuggets level. You would think that a team like Denver would look to rectify what happened at Ball Arena just a couple of weeks prior. And yet, as David Adelman explains, they came out absolutely flat.
We put ourselves behind the 8 ball just the way we started the game, just lethargic energy. I was just throwing bodies out there, just trying to find a group that had some juice. The response in the third quarter was, we scored 47 points, get ourselves back to a tie game, but just didn't do enough late, obviously. I was really hoping that they didn't call the shot clock violation. I thought we had a run-out layup, but they stopped the game, so that's the way it goes.
To that last part, and it's funny because the Nuggets losing, the conversation is, did Nikola Jokic make the right play? But on the other side of the floor, Cooper Flagg, who was superb, and I want to talk more about him coming up, he passed up a late game shot to get it to a teammate, the right basketball play. And it's funny, I was thinking to myself before the end sequence happened that was going to be the conversation. If the Nuggets go down the floor and win the game, I think there would be people in the Metroplex that would be talking about, why didn't Cooper Flagg call his own number late in that game? Why did he pass it up? So it's funny, you had that on both ends of the floor. But what David Adelman is referring to is that when Cooper Flagg passed it up, the shot did not draw iron. So the shot clock kept going down. Nuggets get the ball, and they thought they had possession, which would have negated a shot clock violation, and they could go up the floor against not a set Dallas defense and potentially catch them that way. There wouldn't have been 4 players collapsed in on Nikola Jokic if that play were allowed to continue. It could have gone either way. I think if you're a Nuggets fan, you're hoping they let the play go, as David Adelman explained, but the change of possession happened. I mean, it was almost instantaneous. So I don't fault the officials for calling the shot clock violation. But the Nuggets should have never been in that position. And I don't know if they're looking forward to tomorrow night. Second night of a back-to-back, although Dallas had the second night of a back-to-back too. Yeah, perhaps looking ahead to tomorrow night. But, yeah, Nuggets didn't deserve to win that game, even if they would have. Credit to the bench unit for keeping that one from getting completely out of control. And once Jamal Murray and Jokic reset, came back in the game, they were brilliant. So there were some good things, but all things that should not have needed to happen. You should not have needed 60 combined points from Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic just to have a chance to win the game. You shouldn't have been down 21 to that Mavericks team in the first half. So maybe the universe was sending the Nuggets a message saying, no, that shot from Peyton Watson, as good of a look as that was, it will not go down because you do not deserve to win this basketball game. So Nuggets fall, but they'll have a chance to bounce back tomorrow night as a part of the NBA's Christmas quintuple header. More on that, more on Cooper Flagg and his performance. I'll take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Last night went better for the Avs, so we'll talk about that next. Heritage Night returns to Ball Arena on January 12th. Catch the Avs in their Nordique sweaters and be a part of a throwback night. Score an exclusive Nordiques hat with the ticket package at coavs.com/hat. Avalanche last night, also in action, also a little bit of a struggle. Multiple Avs last night said that they did not play their best game. And I guess we could say that the Nuggets did not have Scott Wedgwood. Maybe that's the difference between these two teams. Nuggets don't have Wedgwood. Because last night, the Avalanche, who admittedly did not play very well, although if I can just digress for a moment, this is what the Utah Mammoth do to the Colorado Avalanche. And I've covered enough athletes and spoken to enough athletes and listened to enough athletes to know that when a game kind of isn't going their way, that they will look inward, which is overall a good quality to have, right? Don't blame the officials. Don't blame, lack of rest or outside forces. You blame yourself. So I hear the Avalanche rather talking about how poorly they felt they played, but this is Utah. This has been a thing when these two teams meet up since Utah was in Arizona and were known as the Coyotes. Ever since they kind of started, and don't discount the fact that their head coach has some institutional knowledge about the Avalanche. Andre Tourigny, who coaches Utah, was in Colorado for 5 years. Some of the players, at least, he knows pretty well, and they're division foes. So you already have that level of familiarity on top of it. But in this iteration of the Coyotes, Mammoth, Hockey Club, whatever you want to call them, since they got Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley and have started to kind of come back up from rock bottom, they've always been very difficult for the Colorado Avalanche to deal with. Now, they haven't won a lot. They did, to their credit, this year win in overtime. But these games are always low scoring, a little frustrating for the Colorado Avalanche. And it's the style of play that they employ. They clog up the neutral zone like nobody's business, prevent those clean entries into the zone. They don't really sit back on the penalty kill. They take that old adage, time and space. Utah does a good job of taking away time and space from the Colorado Avalanche. So the playing style, but also the familiarity, the head coach. And now you throw on top of it, Utah plays at altitude too. In fact, those two teams, the Avs and the Mammoth, are two of the best third period teams in the NHL. So even in Phoenix or Glendale or wherever it was that they were playing before they moved, the Avs would have some trouble with them. Now they go to Salt Lake City, and the Avs don't even have altitude as an advantage. So I'll call them plucky, but I mean it in an endearing way. Like, I like watching Utah play, and I kind of like the fact that Utah gives the Avs some problems. forces the Avs to kind of, because that what Utah does, that's the blueprint. Right? That's what teams try to do against the Avalanche. So I don't know that Utah has the talent to consistently beat the Avalanche. But if you're an Avs fan, good practice. So I could see where the Avs think that they didn't play well, but I've watched enough games where they've played that franchise to know that this is a regular occurrence. So but whether it was because the Avs weren't playing well, Utah was playing well, or some combination of the two, it was another one of these low-scoring games. And getting back to my original thought, thank goodness the Avs had Scott Wedgwood. 32 saves, pitched his second shutout of the season, and it wasn't just the quantity of saves that Scott Wedgwood made, it was the quality. There was, I really thought, a key moment or moments in the game is actually on back-to-back possessions for Utah. Avs have a breakdown, turn the puck over. There were back-to-back breakaways for Utah. And Scott Wedgwood was able to make saves on both. And the second one he made that they had to review and make sure it wasn't a goal was just ridiculous how good that save was. Put his glove up against the post to his left. And that was kind of after he already, I think that was the save actually in the sequence. He made a save, and then he couldn't control the rebound, and Utah shot it again, and then he was able, I mean, it was like, I don't know, I'm trying to, there's a movie in my head, I can't think of what it is, where like somebody's just chilling, talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden their arm cocks back and they catch something. It's happened before, but that's what it was like. Just reach back, boom, able to make the save. Now, could you say that the puck was over the line? Yes. You could say that. But you couldn't see the puck, and that's what the referees have to go on. And Scott Wedgwood even joked about it after the game, having dark equipment served him well because you couldn't see. There was no contrast. It was a black puck going into a black glove. Like you would think with the force at which it was shot and where most times the puck ends up in a glove, in that webbing, that's why it's there, that would make the puck over the goal line, but can't see it. And they ruled it no goal. So even more so that there was no way that the officials were going to come back and overturn that and give Utah a goal. But Scott Wedgwood saved that game for him. That game was at least going to go into overtime. If not, it could have been one of the very, very rare occurrences where the Avs lose in regulation, and to do that at home, almost unthinkable for the Avs to lose at home. And they very well could have last night. If not for their netminder, here's Scott Wedgwood on how good it felt out there.
There's nights when you kind of trick your mind that you're feeling good, and tonight was one of the nights where I didn't have to do any of that. My mind was in it from the get-go. Got off to a pretty hot start, and they're a team that makes you think. They got turnaways and guys fading and finding different spots, and they move the puck quick. So it's not a game where you can really turn your mind off or be half a second behind. And I felt that the IQ tonight was firing on all cylinders.
And that's also part of Utah as well. They've taken the playing style and then they've added with Dylan Guenther, with Logan Cooley, with some of these young players. They've added talent. They've added skill. They've added speed. And that's why this team is in a better spot than they were a few years ago, is because of the talent they have been able to add. And that's what Scott Wedgwood is talking about there. The playing style of Utah with the talent they have, you got to be locked in. And he was. And he continues to be. And you wonder this about a lot of guys across the NHL. How much of this Scott Wedgwood, as good as he was last year, he was good. He's better this year. How much of it could be with an eye towards Italy and a chance to perhaps represent Canada on the world's biggest stage?
It would if it changed my mindset at all. It doesn't. I just kind of come in each game trying to play, for these guys, and Team Canada's going to do what Team Canada does. They're going to watch. They're going to, have their people do, their own due diligence. So each time I go out there, obviously playing for the team, playing for my own preparation and game plan and things like that. So, keep playing that way, make the decision tough. Be in the conversation's cool enough. And if I'm called upon, I'll get exactly what this team's going to do.
And look, he's going to be down on the pecking order if he does end up making the team. Jordan Binnington is Team Canada's goalie. With the way he performed at the Four Nations, it's going to be his gig. Right? And look, Jordan Binnington has not played nearly as well. If Team Canada just wanted to go on who's in the best form leading into the Olympics, they would make their goalie tandem the Avs goalie tandem. I mean, really, Blackwood and Wedgwood, you can make an argument, is the best idea for Canada to have in the Olympics, given the way they've both played. But because of the Four Nations, which I think holds more weight, and it probably should, Jordan Binnington will be the number one goalie. And then the number 2 spot is spoken for. Maybe Scott Wedgwood gets that. Mackenzie Blackwood, even though he's been, especially lately, very good for the Avalanche, Scott Wedgwood with a larger body of work this season, I hope he gets it. I mean, to be able to represent your country in your chosen sport, especially somebody like, what a story that would be. Scott Wedgwood, career backup, goes to the Avs, helps the Avs, right, stabilize themselves, give them the goaltending along with Mackenzie Blackwood that they so desperately needed, and allowed them to get to where they were, playing great this year, and then playing in the Olympics, or just being on the Olympic team. Be a great story. If he keeps it up, I think it's going to be hard for Team Canada to leave him out, and they got to decide on their roster here pretty soon. So Scott Wedgwood's only got to keep up this level of play for a little while longer, and I think he will make Team Canada. But he was brilliant last night. He was brilliant, and it really, right now, it's making it very difficult for me to sit and emphatically say that I still think that if the Avs are going to hoist the Stanley Cup, Mackenzie Blackwood is going to be that goalie in net. It's becoming increasingly more difficult as the season goes on. But we're sitting here on Christmas Eve. A lot of hockey to be played. I think it sorts itself out. But right now, the fact is that the Avalanche have 2 goalies that are playing as well as anybody in the NHL. And this team just continues to win. In fact, the Colorado Avalanche, with last night's win, set a record. We'll call it that. They have more points at the holiday break than any other team in NHL history with 61. They're an absolute wagon. Jared Bednar on what that says about his team coming up next. Happy Christmas Eve to you. We continue on Drive Time Sports. You know, last night is a good example of a slight difference between the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. And I don't want to get too carried away with what this all means. Okay, I think both teams have a similar chance at winning a title this year. What I'm about to say is not something to be used to say this is why the Nuggets can't win a title. But it is a difference that you notice, I think, if you watch both the Avalanche and the Nuggets, and last night is a great example of this. So both teams are playing in under similar situations. Yes, the Nuggets on the road, Avalanche at home, but they're both looking probably naturally forward to the holiday. Nuggets got to work for the holiday, Avalanche don't. But it's a tricky week. This is. I mean, think about your own work life. I know you're not as well compensated as professional athletes, but they are human just like you, and we all look forward to the holidays or look forward to our time off and all that kind of stuff. Or we got a million other things on our mind, like with me and me racking my brain every 10 minutes on making sure I bought all the presents I was supposed to buy. But they're both playing under similar circumstances last night, both against teams that they're much better than. And yet you see the juxtaposition of the Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets. The start was markedly different for both teams. The Avalanche, I thought, actually played well in the first period. Nuggets were awful in the first period. The Nuggets did battle back, to their credit. But ultimately, they fall short. Avs get a win. If you notice both teams either on back-to-back nights or on the same night, you can really see this. The Avalanche, and this isn't just this year, although it's certainly noticeable this year. This has been since both teams' title windows opened. There is this mentality that the Avs have, this extra gear, if you will, where they refuse to lose, even if it's a lesser opponent, right? The Denver Nuggets, for years now, have dropped routinely. Remember last year, I think they dropped 2 games to the Wizards. And look, it doesn't ultimately change how you feel about them as a title contender because they don't have to go through the Wizards or the Kings or some of the Pelicans on their way to an NBA title. And the Nuggets certainly bring their A game more often than not against the best teams in the NBA. But the way that the Avs attack every game, especially this year, it looks different than what you get from the Nuggets on an every night basis. And that is the biggest thing that sticks out to Jared Bednar when he discussed last night the fact that the Avalanche now have more points with 61 than any other team at this juncture of a season in NHL history.
It's hard to play that many games where you don't have off nights or nights that hurt you badly. And, you know, I'm really proud of the guys because they're finding a way to be in every game, even if they don't have their best stuff. Like, I don't think tonight we had our best stuff, but we had a good first, we had a good third, and we got a big goal in the second from G again. And it's, you know, someone new stepping up every night and being able to get the job done. But guys are playing with the right intentions and they're getting rewarded for it.
Yeah, they just, even if they're not quite right, they still put themselves in a position to win the game. when the Nuggets are that way, it does end badly quite a bit in terms of that particular game. Now, I will say that difference, while still noticeable, is less noticeable than it has been in years past. And I think what Jared Bednar referred to there with Sam Girard getting the lone goal is why the Nuggets aren't that way in as many games as they have seemed to be in years past. The Nuggets now, with the depth that they have more options. Obviously, Tim Hardaway is not as ideal an option as Christian Brown. And Jonas Valanciunas is not a better option than Nikola Jokic. But there are other options. And you even saw it last night in that second quarter. The Nuggets bench was actually what got the rally started, with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic on the bench. So part of the reason why I think the difference between those two teams has been so noticeable prior to this year is because of that issue, the non-Jokic minutes, the lack of depth. I think that the Nuggets have helped that. But you have a game last night in that 4-game losing streak at home that they had a few weeks ago is another example. They still can have off nights or not be totally engaged, and it just costs them more than it costs the Avalanche. And just speaking from the Avalanche perspective, I really think that both Nathan MacKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog have a lot to do with that. Especially Gabriel Landeskog. His return, all of this kind of stuff, the motivation he provides by just being out there on the ice, I think makes this team say, we have no reason not to give it our all tonight, because this guy went to hell and back to come back and do the thing that he loves. What excuse do we have to let go of the rope tonight? And then Nathan MacKinnon, you know how incredibly intense he is, incredibly competitive. I think those two now being together on the ice once again is part of the reason why this Avalanche team is the wagon that they are right now and has 61 points before Christmas, the most of any NHL team in history. Now, the natural question that comes up, what were the teams that have been on that list? Who did the Avalanche surpass? You have the 06-07 Ducks. That was their first year as the Anaheim Ducks. RIP to the Mighty Ducks moniker. They had 60. That was the team that the Avalanche were trailing going into last night. They did not win the President's Trophy. That went to the Detroit Red Wings that year. But the Ducks did end up winning the Stanley Cup, somewhat ironically, not over Detroit, although President's Trophy curse, right? So I guess it's not ironically that Detroit that year did not make the Stanley Cup final, but they ended up beating the Senators. So 06-07 Ducks, no President's Trophy, won the Stanley Cup. The 2013-14 Ducks. Anaheim's had some really good teams. They had 59 points at this juncture. They did not win the President's Trophy. Boston won the President's Trophy that year. Avalanche that year finished with 112 points. That was what I call the beginning of the end. Patrick Waugh, Duchesne, O'Reilly, that group, that was their high water mark, and then it just got worse after that. And then the Ducks got bounced in the second round by the Kings. The 2018-19 Lightning had 58. They won the President's Trophy and famously lost in the first round to Columbus. They came back the next 2 years and won the Stanley Cup. Avs fans all together now, what happened the third year after that? And then the 2013-14 Blackhawks, also with 58 points. They were the defending champs that year. They actually faded in the second half of the season. They finished third to that aforementioned Waugh, O'Reilly, Duchesne Avs team. And they ended up getting beat pretty early in the playoffs. So if you're into that kind of thing, you have one Stanley Cup champion out of that group, which lends itself to, if you're new to hockey, the idea that winning the President's Trophy may not be the best thing. The President's Trophy for the most points of any NHL team, which right now feels like, I know it's December 24th, it feels like a formality for the Colorado Avalanche. With all due respect to Dallas. I mean, the playoffs is a different story. But the regular season, it's hard for me to envision the Avalanche not finishing with the most points, the best record. Are they going to set the record for most points in a season by a team? I don't know. But it's to think that the Avs aren't going to be the number one seed in the West. They're not going to win the Central Division. They're not going to have the best record in the league this year. It's hard for me to believe at this point. And then we'll get into the inevitable conversation of, is it a good thing for the Avalanche to win the President's Trophy? But they are a wagon. And now they'll have a few days off. Then they'll play about a month of hockey. And then McKinnon, Makar, Taves. By the way, Devon Taves, got to give him a little credit for last night. Scott Wedgwood was great, but two of the key plays in the third period were Devon Taves defensively. So Scott Wedgwood had some help. But Taves, Makar, McKinnon, Landeskog. Isn't Landeskog on Team Sweden? Aren't they going to choose him for that? Maybe Scott Wedgwood will head to Italy. So we're getting into a weird stretch of the hockey calendar. A good weird. Because we get a chance to kind of reset, survey the landscape, and get ready for the next part of this season. And then we get more NHL hockey. And then we get Olympic hockey, which is even better. And then we come back, rest of the NHL season leading into the best postseason of all sport. 719-24-7. 1313 coming up next. We look forward to Christmas Day, busy Christmas Day, and busy around these parts. Both the Broncos and the Nuggets are in action. And of course, the Denver Broncos, the bigger story going into Arrowhead, looking for a bounce back, looking for a division title, and looking to do something that they have not done a lot of in my lifetime. Tell you what that is next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in hour 2 on this Christmas Eve edition of Drive Time Sports. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it be on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. The handle is the same in all of those places. It is at XTRA Sports 1300. Looking forward to continuing to build our little community here going into the year 2026. While you are watching the show on our social media platforms, if you be so kind as to like, subscribe, follow, and most importantly, drop a comment. A lot going on today. I should say this. Not a lot going on today. A lot went on last night, and there's a lot going on tomorrow. So that gives us plenty to discuss. 719-247-1313. Most notably tomorrow is the primetime NFL game between the Broncos and the Chiefs. And not just because it is the team that I have rooted for my whole life that is in a bad way right now and doesn't seem to be a match for this Broncos team that is coming into Kansas City tomorrow night. But I think that there's an aspect of this game that we're losing. And I do think it's unfortunate. I know if, as a Broncos fan, you're probably celebrating the demise of the Kansas City Chiefs, but really think about it and think about it tomorrow. Because the Broncos are going into a stadium that they've won twice in the last, feels like my whole life, 30 years. 2 times the Denver Broncos have gone into Arrowhead since 1997. So yeah, about coming up on 30 years. Twice they've been able to go into Arrowhead and win. And if they win tomorrow, I'm not going to say it cheapens it, but you wish. I think you wish it was Mahomes. You wish it was the Chiefs at their best, because the Broncos have a team right now that just showed a few weeks ago they are perfectly capable of knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs at full strength. They just did it. But to do it at Arrowhead would mean that much more. But you know what's interesting about the last 2 times that the Broncos have beaten the Chiefs at Arrowhead? They both signified a changing of the guard. You think back to 1997. It was in the playoffs. Chiefs had the better record, obviously. John Elway, who had yet to win a Super Bowl, in his newfangled Broncos gear with the horse rather than the horse inside of the letter D. They came into Arrowhead. And it was a wild game. And I kind of have a Mandela effect. I always grew up thinking that it was Tony Gonzalez that Elvis Gerbach was throwing the ball to on that final drive in the end zone into double coverage. It was knocked away, and the Broncos ended up winning the game. It was actually Lake Dawson. I don't know where along the way I thought it was Tony Gonzalez. But in 1997, I was 12. I wasn't even 12 yet. I was 11. Because when that game would have been played was before my birthday. I was 11 years old. There was definitely an 8 and a round number on the jersey. It wasn't 88. It was 80, Lake Dawson. But you know what happened after that. The Broncos beat the Chiefs, end up going on to win the Super Bowl. They do it again the next year. So maybe a short-lived reign in the AFC West. And, of course, there were years where John Elway and the Broncos sat atop that division. But it was going into that, the Chiefs had the better record. The Broncos beat them in Arrowhead and ended up going on to become back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Then really the last time the Broncos won in Arrowhead was really a changing of the guard, right? That was Peyton Manning. Going into Arrowhead, Chiefs went up 14-0 in that game. Manning rallied them. The game seemed destined to go to overtime. And Andy Reid, rather than kneeling on it and just going into overtime on his own side of the field, decides, let's run a draw play for Jamal Charles and just see if we break one. Well, he gets stripped, fumbles it, Roby runs it in, and the Denver Broncos win the game. And that was a year where the Broncos overtook Kansas City, that they were the best team in the AFC, that they would accomplish more than Kansas City would. So the parallels are there for this game as well. Because with a win, and you won't know until Sunday, but if the Broncos win and the Chargers lose, a win at Arrowhead would be the thing, or at least half of what the Broncos need this weekend in order to end the Chiefs' run atop the AFC West. And if you think back to 2015, if you think back to 1997, where did those Broncos seasons ultimately end up? It would be better if it were Mahomes on the field, the Chiefs at the height of, no, they're not at the height of their powers at any point this season, but you get what I mean. Having Jones and Kelsey and Mahomes and Reed and that whole group that has reigned over this division for a decade almost, for the Broncos to go in and not only win in Arrowhead, but do it and maybe by weekend's end be crowned AFC West champions. But they can still do that with or without Patrick Mahomes. On the other sideline, the Broncos with a win and a Charger loss or tie, because we've had one of those this year, so I guess I got to mention it. If the Chargers don't win against the Texans and the Broncos win, they will be AFC West champions. Now, as far as the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes, here's Pat Surtain on perhaps the difficulty of preparing for this Chiefs team.
It's different for sure. Not having a great player in Mahomes out there is very different. You rarely see anything, very seldomly see things like this where you see a great player go out like that in December. So it's quite the adjustment, but we preparing the right way, game planning the right way, and focus on what's ahead. Obviously, it's going to be a new set of offense with Mahomes out. But, all we got to do is rely on our game plan and focus on the main thing.
And the main thing is getting back to what they have been before the last 2 weeks, which is this suffocating defense. And they haven't been that for 2 weeks. And I theorized yesterday that this Broncos defense is wearing down just like they did last year. This can be a game where they show that that's not happening. Now, there will be another test 10 days after that, a better test with the Chargers. But the Broncos defense going up against Chris Oladokun should be able to make you remember what this Broncos team was just 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'll tell you one big difference that there will be. The pass rush of the Denver Broncos, they better get home fast. Because the Chiefs' entire game plan is going to be to get the ball out of Chris Oladokun's hands as quickly as possible, which most teams already have that as a game plan going up against Benito and Cooper and Allen and Roach and the whole group. But when you have Patrick Mahomes, you give him license to extend plays, use his legs, and try to hit a big play. That's not going to exist tomorrow night. It's going to be a ton of RPO just to try and slow down that pass rush, get them thinking, all right, are they running or passing? And then if they are throwing it, it's going to be, the ball's going to get out like that. So I don't know if we're going to be talking about even as prolific of a game as the pass rush had against Trevor Lawrence, sacking him 5 times. I don't know that that'll be the case. That doesn't mean that the Broncos defense won't look dominant tomorrow night. They could still look dominant tomorrow night and not get 5 or 6 sacks. Andy Reid will not let his quarterback do the things that he allows Patrick Mahomes to do. You won't have a lot of plays over the top. Right? Even with some of the same personnel, from a receiving core, it's going to be heavy Travis Kelce. Don't forget, this could be Travis Kelce's last game at Arrowhead. And I think it will be, actually. I think he is retiring after this year. I think they're going to feature Travis Kelce maybe even more so than they usually do. But it'll be heavy Travis Kelce in the short and maybe some intermediate passing game. RPO, get the ball out quickly. And then to flip it, the game plan is going to be hope that at least the Chiefs defense can hold down the Broncos offense, or better yet, force Bo Nix into making some poor decisions, get a short field, and try to win the game that way. But the side of the football that should not have much problem is the Broncos defense. The Broncos offense, that's a little bit different. Patrick Mahomes doesn't play defensively. And as Bo Nix says, this is still a very good Chiefs defense that he's going up against, but one that he's very familiar with.
Thank goodness it's a team that I've played already in the year, so it feels like an extension of the first game. So it's sort of strange, but it's just all the retention, all the plays, and all the looks that you could get with those plays, and you're limited by a couple of days, 3 days, I guess, of work that normally you get that you got to cram in on a shorter notice.
And if tomorrow night is an extension of the matchup that they had right before the Broncos bye week, then the big plays, the explosive plays are going to be something to watch. Last game, you had both Pat Bryant, who will not play. He's been officially ruled out after that vicious hit he suffered in the Jaguar loss. And also Troy Franklin. They both went over 80 yards. Ironically, Bo Nix did not have a touchdown in that game, but he had plenty of big plays. In fact, as far as a deep passing game from that standpoint, it was probably Bo Nix's best performance. So will the Denver Broncos be able to dial up those big plays again against Kansas City? And the interesting thing is it goes back to something I talked about yesterday, how maybe the Broncos fell a little bit too in love with trying to get big pass plays. Sean Payton talked about doing too much. It's always a balance, right? The idea that the Broncos can win from now on, dinking and dunking and short passing game, no, they're going to have explosive plays. Bo Nix is going to have to hit the deep ball. But there's a line that I think in Sean Payton's mind they crossed against Jacksonville. Sean Payton, Bo Nix has some of the most attempts of over 20 yards of any quarterback in the NFL. The idea that Sean Payton doesn't let him throw it deep is nonsense. He does. But there's a time and a place. There's a situation for it. And it's once you establish the run, once you get the defense creeping up, then you hit them over the top. Maybe on the opening drive, they might try some of the long passing plays, but as the game gets settled in, I expect it to be very much to the Broncos' identity, running the football with R.J. Harvey, some of their own little bit of the RPO, but the easy passes for Bo Nix. And then in that middle 8, where the Broncos will ultimately look to take a stranglehold on the game, and if they need them late, then that's when I think Sean Payton will dial up the big plays to try and get points on the board. It is a fine line that you walk. The idea that the Broncos can not pass the ball deep is wrong, but you can do it too much. You can fall in love with trying to make the big play too much, and that's what Sean Payton's message was this week. But the Kansas City defense is still obviously a test. It doesn't feel the same without Mahomes. Certainly, it's a much easier task at hand for the Broncos defense. But as far as the Broncos offense, they still got to show some things because Chris Jones, Karlaftis, and that whole group, they're still out there. Broncos and Chiefs on Sunday. And one last thing. Talked about the historical significance of the Broncos potentially winning at Arrowhead. Talked about the difference without Patrick Mahomes. But the biggest thing about this game is not how significant it is in the Chiefs-Broncos rivalry. What it is about what the Broncos are moving towards and the Chiefs are not. And that is to winning a Super Bowl. And that loss against Jacksonville, I think, was jarring for everybody. And that is the biggest aspect of tomorrow night. You can call it a get-right game, a recalibration, getting back to basics. Any of those phrases would pertain to this game. The Arrowhead stuff, the no Mahomes stuff, the Chiefs-Broncos rivalry, that's for you and me. But for the Denver Broncos, it's about the bigger picture that the Kansas City Chiefs aren't a part of. They're just standing in the way of ultimately what the Broncos want to do this weekend, and that's clinch the AFC West. Here's Bo Nix.
Sometimes a loss, especially in this league, it gives you a good reality check and puts you back on course. And obviously you want to win every single game, and nobody wants to lose, especially with the opportunities that we felt like we had Sunday. But they played a good game, and we got beat. And I think we just got to look in the mirror and fix things. And we got the team that we're going to be able to fix things faster because of a loss. And so excited to see what we do in response to that.
A course correction is the number one priority for the Denver Broncos tomorrow night in Arrowhead. 719-247-1313. Nuggets also in action tomorrow night, but they will be without yet another starter. But just how long is Cam Johnson going to be out? I'll tell you next on Extra Sports 1300. Nuggets fans, don't miss Nuggets and Rockies collab night. How about that? The collaboration we didn't know we needed. Nuggets Rockies collab night on January 27th versus the Detroit Pistons. Grab the crossover package to score a special edition Nuggets X Rockies item. Get your ticket package now at nuggets.com. I think they're doing it with the Avs as well. So that'd be interesting. Tomorrow, I know the NFL is going to rule the day because it's football, and even though it's a pretty, and this isn't self-serving because the first two games of the day are right here on Extra Sports 1300. Not a very good slate. Even the Broncos Chiefs has lost a little bit of juice, but there's still much to play for with the Denver Broncos. The two early games, I don't know. But we're going to get the numbers, and the NFL is going to outdraw the NBA. It's just going to happen. But the NBA slate is so much better. And the way it has fallen this year is it might be the perfect slate to open what many people view as the NBA season. The NBA season starting tomorrow. A second opening night, the real start of the NBA season, however you want to phrase it. It might be a perfect slate for that. At 10 a.m., you have Cavs-Knicks, two teams that are supposed contenders in the East. I say supposed because I'm not a huge believer in the Knicks, and the Cavaliers have struggled this season. They're only a game or two above 500. But until Jason Tatum gets back for the Celtics, and outside of Detroit, who has been the best story in the East, these are the two teams that you're kind of looking at. Right? So you got that, and they knew that going into it. That's why they put Cavs-Knicks. It's just that, and the Knicks, to their credit, the Knicks are where you expect them to be. Just give credit to Detroit for the outstanding season that they have had so far. The Knicks are right there. They're the second seed in the East. It's just my own personal belief that the Knicks will not represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. But they are on the short list of teams that can come out of the East for sure. Then things really pick up. At 12:30, it's the Spurs and Thunder. And I don't know if you saw this, but last night, Wemby and the Spurs didn't just beat OKC, which they've done now twice. And two of the four Oklahoma City losses this season are to San Antonio, which would be impressive on its own. The Spurs absolutely beat down a perfectly healthy and full-strength OKC team. So they have gone toe-to-toe with the would-be dynasty. Everyone thinks that with OKC and their picks and how young they are, that they're going to have a chance, even with the financial rules as they are in the NBA. There is the belief that the Thunder will be able to break out of that, will be able to triumph over that and win multiple titles. And the Spurs have just beaten them twice. And we do this in sports, especially in the NBA. We find the next thing, and everything from a national perspective today is that the Thunder and the Spurs are what's next. These two teams are going to be battling for years to come, with no mention of the Denver Nuggets, no mention of the Houston Rockets, no mention of the Minnesota Timberwolves. But we do this. And certainly you look at the runway of these teams, Spurs have potentially back-to-back-to-back rookie of the years on their team if they hang on to Dylan Harper. They're much younger than the Denver Nuggets are. The Denver Nuggets are a veteran group. Houston's younger, but one of their key players is Kevin Durant, which we know doesn't have many years left. So I get it. It's new. It's exciting. Both of these teams are young. You feel like they have a chance to be battling for years to come. So I don't begrudge anybody for billing it as that, for looking forward to that. I'm just saying don't forget about the team in Denver. They're in that mix too. But the runway certainly appears to be longer for OKC and San Antonio. And I think it's great. I do. I know that the Nuggets are kind of being ignored and all of that. I don't have a problem with that. I think what San Antonio has done in 2 games now against the Thunder is terrific. Not because I have any animus towards OKC and I'm rooting for their demise. I just think it's fascinating that a young and upstart team is beating OKC now twice. I think it's great for the NBA. Everybody was just saying OKC is going to win again this year. Why even bother? And certainly we would object to that with the Denver Nuggets and the roster moves that they made. Houston would object to it with the addition of Kevin Durant. And now you have the Spurs, who I will say that Wemby, and I don't mean this as a pun, may be getting too big for his britches a little bit. Like, he's talking really big game, and maybe he's capable of delivering. I don't know that still very young roster around him is ready for this moment. I still think we're a year away from San Antonio being a serious title contender. But how brash he is, the bravado, right now it's good, and he's backed it up. So that's going to be a fun one at 12:30. And give credit where credit's due. San Antonio's second in the West. Nuggets, how about this? Off to their best start in franchise history, and there are 2 teams that are better than them, at least in the standings. How you like that? At 3:30, it will be the Mavericks and the Warriors. And watching last night, if not for the Nuggets angle and the fact that that's the team I cover, the biggest story of last night was Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg put together last night the finest performance he has had in his albeit short career. That's the best I've seen Cooper Flagg play. 33 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. He scored had 30-point games, 2 other 30-point games, but given the opponent and the shots that he hit, I mean, this guy for the season's making 1 out of every 4 3-pointers he makes. He couldn't miss from 3-point range last night, including hitting a massive 3-pointer to put the Dallas Mavericks up 5 with a few minutes left in the game. So that was Cooper Flagg's best performance. And now he's going to get the biggest audience that he's going to get unless somehow he's able to lead Dallas deep into the playoffs. The way that Cooper Flagg played yesterday even impressed the best player in the world.
He was really aggressive, going downhill. He opened the game really. He had like 10 points, and then he made a couple of shots, and then he kind of get himself even more going. So he was definitely a hot hand out there. But just how I'm going to say the poise and the he played with. He doesn't feel like he's so young out there. He seems like he played meaningful games and he was winning before. That's how, like, my opinion.
He added the maturity level of Cooper Flagg is what sticks out to him. And it sticks out to me too. I mean, think about the weight that is on his shoulders, has been on his shoulders for years now. And the guy's only, 8, 9, he just turned 19. Remember, he was an early enrollee at Duke. He's a year ahead of everything. He should be at Duke right now as a freshman. But he's been the next big thing in college basketball. And then he's had the weight of carrying one of the most storied college basketball programs for a year, being the most talked about player in college basketball, to going to not only being the number 1 overall pick, regardless of the team that drafted him, that would be more weight on his shoulders. But you're essentially replacing Luka Doncic. Right? And everything that went along with Luka going to LA, Cooper Flagg is filling that void in Dallas, giving Mavericks fans something to hope for, dragging them out of the pit of despair they've been in for months because of what Nico Harrison did. If he landed in Washington, Utah, there would be a weight on his shoulders, not like it is in Dallas, and a big market as well. And this guy, I think his 3 30-point games have all come in like the last couple of weeks. Like, this guy is just, he's exponentially growing in his game. And the next piece of his game, that when he gets that right, he's going to be even scarier than he is right now, is the thing he was putting on display last night, his 3-point shooting. He adds that to his game with his court awareness, his decision-making, his ability to control the Mavericks offense, to Jokic's point. You look at him and you're like, that dude's you think that dude's 16 looking at him. Like, he's grown man size, but he looks like a teenager, which he still technically is. He looks young. We all did this. Once we started to be able to grow facial hair, we just wanted to grow it out no matter how bad it looked. Cooper Flagg's facial hair looks horrendous. He looks like a teenager that just started growing facial hair and is very proud of it. But he's man-sized, and he has a man's game. And he put it on the Denver Nuggets last night. And he'll try to follow it up on an even bigger stage tomorrow against the Warriors. And don't forget, there's a little bit of a thing going on with the Warriors. Draymond Green the other night against Phoenix got into a verbal altercation with Steve Kerr and left. He left the bench, went somewhere in the middle of a game. Eventually he returned, and both parties, Kerr and Draymond, are trying to spin it. But this is the latest, what we have is the latest blow up of Draymond Green. A player that he already had the reputation he had, but over the last couple of years, there's been these like blow-ups that even for Draymond Green feel like a little bit much. And now he's fighting with his coach, reportedly over the fact that he has to guard Wemby and Jokic and Şengün. He don't like guarding centers because he's not the spry young man he used to be. That's apparently what this is all over. Is that enough to F-bomb your coach and leave in the middle of a game? Yusuf Nurkic style? I don't think so. But according to Chris Haynes, that's what this is all about. So you have some drama with the Warriors side of things. Then you have Houston, LA. That's an easy one. Right? Luka should return. He did not play last night as the Lakers got absolutely handled by the Phoenix Suns. But the storyline of the Lakers franchise moving beyond LeBron, it's Luka's team now. Last night was a great example. LeBron played well enough, 23 points, led the team. The Lakers got demolished. This is Luka's team now. Everyone has acknowledged it. And he's on a short list of MVP candidates right now. Really, the MVP race, because that's certainly something that we monitor. At the unofficial start to the season or the second opening night, it's a 3-man race right now with Wemby lurking. It's Jokic, it's Luka, and it's Shea. And then, of course, you have the Nuggets and the Wolves. The late one. Says 8:30, expect tip-off closer to 9. And what, beyond bouncing back after last night's loss, really, I look at this game as, are the Nuggets going to, on the biggest stage that they will have during the regular season, are they going to truly put behind them this pseudo rivalry they've had with Minnesota? The moves that the Nuggets made and how Jamal Murray has been playing. In 2 matchups, the Nuggets have won both. The Timberwolves haven't been the problem for the Denver Nuggets that they have been in years past. And on that stage tomorrow night, it is a chance for the Nuggets to really cement that idea that it's OKC now. We're not messing around with Minnesota anymore. And conversely, what Minnesota can do is say, no, this is still a thing. You still got to go through us. You haven't beaten us in the playoffs. We are still a difficult matchup for you. And we're going to show you on your home floor on Christmas night. So I think tomorrow night's game is very intriguing. Maybe it's outside of, the day-to-day, and that's kind of what Christmas is. It's a standalone stage. It's not really going to be about the Nuggets. Hey, they got to bounce back after losing to Dallas. This is about all of these games are about big ideas. Cavs, Knicks, who's the top contender in the East? Spurs, Thunder. Is this going to be the rivalry for the better part of the next decade? Mavericks, Warriors. One team dealing with drama, the other team with their new franchise savior. Then you got one of the most historic franchises passing the torch from LeBron to Luka. You have a Houston team that has designs on playing for a title, and then you have 2 teams that have been through the wars a little bit in the playoffs. Is that still a rivalry? So there's a lot of big ideas that are going to be discussed regarding this Christmas quintuple header. I'm looking forward to it. The one game, I was talking to somebody earlier, I don't need to watch Cavs Knicks. I'm good. Colin Cowherd with LeBron, we're good here. I don't need to watch Cavs Knicks. All of those other games, I'm fascinated by. Houston, LA, they're going to be sacrificed because I got to watch a football game. But I think the slate tomorrow in the NBA is terrific. 719-24-7-1313. Back after this. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. I do wish you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. It's weird. Like, I'll be back on Monday, so I'm not done for the year, but it with Christmas and everything, you have a feeling that you're grateful and you want to thank people, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. I got a text in. I don't even know what to call. What's the area code in Spain? Is it just 34? Is that the area code? Do they not have an area code system in Spain? But this is really cool. It says you are awesome. Clearly, this is a complete stranger if they say that I'm awesome. Love listening to you. Live in Spain now and stay up until 11 p.m. to listen. There is a world where the Chargers can win the West. Go KC. Well, that makes two of us saying go KC for tomorrow night. But I appreciate that. That's amazing. So get to bed. I'm done here in just a couple of minutes. So get to bed, and then we'll chat again on Monday. But I'm just very, even though I have been called a curmudgeon and not the best to be around this time of year, I do want to say how much it means that you guys listen to this show and support this show. There are things happening going into the year 2026 that I'm very excited about. It will not alter your day-to-day. Well, in fact, I'll just say it. I was on the Richard Randall show on KVOR this morning. My show is going to be simulcast over there starting in 2026. So that's why I say I haven't really brought it up here, because it's like, doesn't change. You're already listening to the show. You're already watching the show. It's not going to impact you. But it's adding another platform, trying to grow this community. And it's because of the listenership and the support I've gotten from you that is allowing me to expand. So I very much appreciate it and hope that you have a great day tomorrow and great holidays. It's going to be big 2026. 2025 was big. And next week, I want to get into some of that, some of the biggest stories of the year, because it was a very eventful year. But 2026, with most notably what the Denver Broncos are trying to do, it's going to be fun. But I'm not done for the year. I am off tomorrow and Friday. And then I'll be back on Monday, and we'll go over Broncos Chiefs, lay out all what's at stake for the Charger game, talk about the Nuggets and the Wolves on Christmas as well. And then we'll look forward to the final week of the regular season in the NFL, and then shortly thereafter, the postseason. So appreciate your patronage, especially on a day like today with so much going on. And it does mean a lot that you've taken time to join me. And again, have a great holiday, great weekend. We'll reconvene on Monday and see what's what with the Broncos and the Nuggets on Christmas.